Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Monday, April 29th, 2019. Happy Monday to everybody. We hope you had a restful weekend. Let's go ahead and get you caught up with some Grand Solar Minimum update news. First, we'll take a look at some space weather. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at a low 325.7 kilometers with a density of 2.6, but that's going to change by May 2nd, and I'll show you why here just in a second. Let's take a look at our sun. We are blank again. This will be now 8 consecutive days without sunspots, keeping us at 70 days now for 2019 so far this year. All right, taking a look at our KP indices. Well, let's jump over to space weather section of the grandsolarminimum.com. Go ahead and refresh that. We had a little issue earlier with this. So we'll check TSI while that's loading. TSI came in on April 21st at a 1360.646. So we observed the dip around the 13th and 14th of April. And I spoke with TSM, Solar Observations, and he was pretty prompt and exact about where we were going to see TSI jump back into, and he was correct at 1360.6. We are now once again seeing those values staying in that range. And now, here we go. So let's take a look at KP indices over the last 24 hours or so. It's been low, max of 3. Right now we're talking about a 2. It's been quiet as, actually we're at a 1 right now, 24-hour max of 2. Like I said, that's going to change, and I'll show you why. And it's going to be everything to do with this coronal hole that is now Earth facing. Let's put this in motion. And this is what we are looking at right now. This particular coronal hole is going to impact Earth with accelerated solar winds, possibly geomagnetic unrest. So we could probably see a G1 at this point for this storm coming from this coronal hole in particular. But as of right now, we are definitely expected increased solar wind speeds and possibilities of G1 geomagnetic activity. And let's go ahead and take a look at the reverse side of our star now. Right now, no sunspots to report, but there is some activity around the negative 180 area, and that could be AR2737, I believe, reoccurring, as this strong sunspot has been a nuisance for the sun here, and it's been the only thing that's kept the sun from being completely blank at this point. We did have a dual sunspot the last time we saw this region turning around. Another smaller sunspot area developed behind it, but we appear to have that same formation. So we'll have to watch and see if these are just remain active regions, or do these become our next numbered sunspot active regions. But as far as any kind of sunspots right now, we are blank. And there is something appearing on the eastern horizon here, especially if you look at the last few clips of the SDO. We will also zoom in just a little bit on that, guys. We will keep our eyes on this. Point this out. It's not much. Can't see anything really right now. But we're not calling it the next active region, but it is something to kind of watch, as it's the most action we've probably seen in quite some time. All right, let's move along to our headlines around the world. And first, we'll start in Ottawa, Canada. And Canada actually makes the broadcast tonight 2 to 3 different times. So you guys, we're finding a lot of information to our neighbors up north. But it says here, Ottawa is fighting massive spring floods that hit areas along the Ottawa River on Friday, April 26, 2019. A state of emergency has been declared in at least 14 communities in the region. The still rising Ottawa-Gatineau region's 2019 spring floods are officially the worst on record in some areas along the Ottawa River, with more poised to fall as rivers keep rising over the next 3 days. Here we have the water is expected to rise by another 18.5 inches in Lac Cologne, and hopefully I'm not butchering that too much. Another 10.2 inches in Arnprior, another 15.3 inches in Britannia, another 19.6 inches in Hull, 8.2 inches in Thurso, and 6.2 inches additionally in Hawkesbury. Records were also broken in Britannia, Ottawa on Sunday when the water level rose to 0.78 inches above peak in 2017. And here at watchers.news, they have the graphs to compare to show you guys where we're at and what we're looking at. The city of Ottawa has declared state of emergency as river levels continue to rise, threatening to surpass those reached when flooding devastated some neighborhoods just 2 years ago. We are now beyond our city's capacity, and that is why we have called in armed forces and have been told 400 troops will be deployed to the affected areas. This was according to Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson. States of emergency have been declared in the following municipalities: the city of Ottawa, the town of Huntsville, town of Bracebridge, township of Minden Hills, township of Whitewater Region, township of Horton, township of McNabb, city of Clarence, Rockland, township of Alfred Plantagenet. Probably butchered that one. Mari's giggling. What's that one? You don't know? Okay, thanks. Thanks for laughing. I appreciate it. Anyway, township of Laurentane Valley. Of course, that one's probably butchered as well. And county of Renfrew. So lots of action here in Canada. This is just part of the news headlines that they are making tonight. And Ottawa will see the high spring floods. Once again, another region that we are talking about bad floods, worst floods in a long time. And, we've seen it in the United States, we've seen it in Mozambique, we've seen it in Iran, we've seen it in Turkey, we're seeing it in Indonesia, the Philippines, Australia, now Canada, and a couple different areas now, not just one little spot here. So we'll leave the link in the description for the show. Thanks again to the watchers. And staying with the watchers, well, let's talk about 29 killed, 13 missing, and thousands affected after floods and landslides hit Indonesia. And this is data for April 28th. 29 people have been killed and at least 13 others still missing after floods and landslides in Indonesia, capital of Jakarta, and Bengkulu province in western parts of the country on April 26th and 27th, 2019. Torrential rains have triggered the natural disasters that affected almost 15,000 people, the officials have said. The floods and landslides cut off roads connecting Bengkulu with other provinces and overflowing river submerged surrounding areas. At least 22 people were killed in the province, along with hundreds of livestock. This disaster destroyed at least 184 houses, 4 school buildings, streets, bridges, and water channels within the territory. Floods and landslides have been striking most of the district of Bengkulu province since Friday, April 26. The search for missing victims was carried out by a joint SAR team. Some areas are difficult to access. Electricity is partially extinguished. Communication with other regions is difficult. Bridges, roads are damaged. Budget in regions is limited, said an official there. So you can tell that this area has been battered as well. High flood waters throughout these townships and villages. And once again, just an excellent collection of photography and video evidence of what is happening in another part of our world where we are continuing to see more flooding, more long-term infrastructure issues that are happening alongside with these storms. And the bottom line here, guys, is that we have to start budgeting and planning now for reconstruction of the infrastructure. The Green New Deal wants to rebuild every building in the United States with this green new technology. Let's start with rebuilding our infrastructure first, our sewer lines, our gutter systems. Let's make sure that our sanitary system can handle floodwaters, rising rivers and creeks, lakes, We've got to address those issues first, because I can speak from experience that when you have issues with infrastructure, whether it be sewer or just water distribution, one little problem can turn into a giant problem just because of the age of the infrastructure. And clearly here we've seen tons of rain in a short period of time, plus more landslides, and we've been talking about the uptick of those as well throughout the region. Obviously, this bridge is damaged. There is no way possible that these people should even be standing in this area, in this picture. So thanks again to watchers.news and staying with these folks once again. In fact, today they've got a lot of our headlines. A lot has been going on in the last couple of days. This is more than 35,000 homes destroyed as tropical cyclone hits Mozambique. This is dated for April 28th, yesterday. So this is a story that broke yesterday. Another major natural disaster is affecting Mozambique just 6 weeks after a devastating tropical cyclone Idai left more than 1,000 people dead. More than 35,000 homes in parts of Cabo Delgado, where Tropical Cyclone Kenneth made landfall on April 25th as a Category 4 hurricane equivalent, were partially or fully destroyed, officials said on April 28, 2019. More than 160,000 people have been affected, many of which are now exposed and hungry. Government officials said aid workers tried to reach hard-hit areas outside Pemba, but were forced to turn back after rivers burst their banks, flooding homes up to their roofs. Helicopters could not fly, and a number of flights were canceled, preventing humanitarian workers and aid to be delivered by air, the Associated Press reported. Save the Children organization said total devastation affecting 37-mile stretch of the coastline and nearby islands. It was reported earlier that an estimated 90% of homes on the tourist island of Abu were destroyed as well. At least 5 people were killed in Mozambique and 3 in Comoros. Now, 1 is too many, but compared to the tropical cyclone Idai that took 1,000 lives, the only thing that we can credit is the preparation that happened, that we evacuated 30,000 people, and that might have played a role in saving lives as far as losing as many people as we lost during Idai. And again, excellent footage once again, thanks to the watchers.news. Landslides, floods ravaging villages. Here we clearly see the water is up to most people's waist at this point. And just another example of, this is the season for these storms to start up, but still a little early for these storms to do the damage that we've already seen. And 2 big storms here now. Kenneth was a Category 4 equivalent. So we had Idai that was a Category 5 equivalent, I believe, and this is a Category 4, and just in the same region. It feels like Mother Nature is picking on Mozambique and drowning out a lot of crops and drowning out a lot of villages and roads and infrastructures and you name it. Rare snowstorm hit Chicago, breaking a 109-year-old snow record. Look at this. Would you look at that? Sorry, Mari didn't like that one. So we had a lot of rumors about snow coming in over the weekend. Thankfully, we didn't even see a dusting here in upstate New York, thank God. But an unusually strong late season snowstorm hits part of the United States on April 27th and 28th, 2019, dropping heavy snow and causing hundreds of flights to be canceled. Chicago Air, an international report, received 2.5 inches of snow on the 27th, breaking a record that set a date back in 1950 where we only got 0.2 of an inch. The snow forced cancellations for more than 700 flights at the airport. Now, Alan Rippert of AccuWeather, senior meteorologist, says the last time this much snow fell was back 109 years ago, back in 1910. The latest date on record for any measurable snow is May 11, 1996. Okay. However, we have seen snow as late as May 22nd. That was in 1917. As of 2100 local time, April 27th, Rockford, Illinois received around 3.7 inches of snow. This is the first snow since 2014, first accumulating snow since 1994. The first time the city has received 5+ inches of snow, 2+ inches of snow, since records began in 1906. And take a look at their stats here, as we just read to you. Preliminary snowfall totals. Look, 3 north of Campton Hills, we had 4.4 inches. St. Charles, Kane City had 4.4 inches. Chicago O'Hare reporting 1.9. Between 3 to 6 inches of snow fell across a narrow swath of northeastern Iowa and northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. Check that out. April, folks. April. And a lot of this did not stick as well. The temperatures have been warm. It's spring. Ground is not frozen, but still, to see this much snow coverage, pretty impressive. Old Man Winter is trying not to let go of its threshold right now. And it's impressive. And wait till we show you the latest on our GFS outlook. Late season blizzard hits Alberta. Zero visibility leads to more than 150 crashes. Canada. So first we talked about Ottawa's floods. Now we're talking about Alberta getting hit with some snow. About 11.8 inches of snow fell on Carrot Creek and Rimley, 2.6 inches on Red Deer, and up to 5.5 on Edmonton. This was all local time at 12:39 on April 27. Up to 7.9 inches of snow was recorded in and around the city of Calgary. Calgary police said they responded to over 147 related calls to road conditions and closures. The snow was accompanied with winds of about 51 miles per hour, so this system caused zero visibility in parts of the state, forced road and highway closures, and resulted in more than 150 crashes by the day's end. 18 of them ended up with injuries. 62 departure and 28 arriving flights were canceled from the Calgary airport, and winter weather alerts have been lifted in all but 3 areas. Cypress Hills, Lethbridge, and Medicine had as of 10 local time on April 28th. But check this out, guys. The snow that we saw falling in Iowa and Illinois is nothing compared to this here. April 27th. That's quite a picture here. Visibility less than 1/10 of a mile. And another image here of cars off the road. Hey, it is time for spring, guys. Enough is enough. Bring on spring. Jeez. So, last winter, we saw the cold and the snow stick around in small portions of the United States last year. This year, we're starting to see it a little more regional, not just the United States, but a little bit all over the world, where we're seeing Old Man Winter is trying to hang on. So we've got snow in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere right now, where that shouldn't be. And, you know, a lot of people have been talking about how it's been really warm in the UK and Europe and all that. Well, here we go. Significant cold blast expected across Europe at the beginning of May. Forecast models indicate a significant cold blast for this time of year will affect an entire Europe and northern Africa at the beginning of May. After an unusually warm March, which is what I was getting at, March and April, Europe will get to experience some weird weather. America is already witnessing with well below average temperatures, heavy rain, and snow. Portugal, Spain, France, and parts of Central and Southeast Europe are already experiencing below average temperatures, but if models come true, it'll get much colder. Arctic air will first start affecting Sweden, Finland, and Norway on May 2nd, descend down to the UK, Germany, and Poland by May the 4th be with you, and by May 5th to entire Europe areas except Portugal and Western Spain and Northern Africa by May 8th. while western parts of the continent will warm up by May 12th. Eastern, southeastern Europe will remain colder than average through at least May 15th. That's almost to June, folks. Halfway there. A similar weather pattern, very warm at end of winter and the beginning of spring, followed by unusually cold temperatures. Heavy rain, snow, and frost was also observed over the past few years. This seems to be a bit different, however. The blast is coming somewhat later. So, beautiful reporting in this article, because they are pointing out that we are seeing these conditions over the last couple of years. But the difference between this one and last year and the year before is that this one's coming a little later. And that is where we're starting to see the concern. Today, we did a interview with Craig over at his channel, radiantcreators.com. And he asked me today, me and Mari, about what are the signs that make us feel like that we are heading into this grand solar minimum. And we told him it was the floods, the precipitation, the crop loss, and the temperature swings too as well. And this is an example right here of why we are talking about why we believe that we are approaching grand solar minimum conditions. When you have temperature swings like this, and they did have an unusually warm March and April, and to see these temperatures last out for the 15-day forecast before finally we start to see some normality return. But this article is pointing out that we are observing this here lately, and this year is the difference is that it's arriving later. So we've been preaching on this channel now for a couple of years about how temperature swings, grand solar minimum conditions, and then longer winters and shorter grow seasons. And I believe that's happening right now. We're seeing the very beginning of it. That's the scary part. This is only the minor effect. We're not even in the deep part of the minimum. So when we see these temperatures drastically dropping now, especially when we start observing this in 07, 08, 09, and now this part of the minimum, things are even colder. Conditions are getting even worse, which is why so many of us are believing now that this is going to look like it's going to be a very deep period of almost no activity at all in the upcoming grand solar minimum. So these temperatures obviously are concerning for any kind of spring crops. If frost will kill anything, snow or even heavy rain that could flood things out and ruin the early plant. So this early warm weather that they've received over here is now about to be spoiled by this Arctic cold blast that we have coming over the region here in the next 15 days. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.